I have a fantastic program for you today called Keto Schmeto. That's right. Right here on the Julie Tussey Show, we're going to talk about keto. Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Do you lose weight on it? What about living a lifestyle of keto? I have Jason Leenaarts. He is from Revolutionary You, the great, amazing podcast that you can go and listen to. And he is also the official fitness professional for the Julie Tussey Show. We're going to weigh in. Come and join all the fun and learn how you can be healthy and fit on the Julie Tussey Show. Welcome. Get on the Julie Tussey train. We're going somewhere, baby.
Pop the glam pain. It's time for the Julie Tussey Show live guest current event scathing exposés. The original suburban bombshell, the big blonde baby, giving you the fastest, funniest, most informative 30 minutes of your life. And now, here's Julie Tussey.
Thank you so much for listening to the Julie Tussey Show today. We have a fantastic show for you. As you know from the intro, we're going to be talking about Keto Schmeto. That's right, Keto Schmeto. You've never heard anyone else say that, I am sure. But I have asked the official fitness pro for the Julie Tussey Show, Jason Leenaarts, to join me today. Jason's on the line. Jason, how are you today?
I'm good, buddy. It's been a little while. Thanks for having me back.
It's been too long. I've been missing you, and I've been on a self-improvement, watch what you say, think better about yourself kind of a mode for a while.
And how is that mode going?
It's going really well. I'm feeling
good.
Feeling fabulous.
Good.
So anyway, today we're going to talk about Keto Schmeto, which I'm sure when I called you were like, oh my gosh, this woman's crazy. But before we do that, what have you been up to? Let's let a lot of the listeners listening in today may not have met or heard you before on the show, although you've been on several times. So kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, so I guess the Reader's Digest version is that I have a brick and mortar personal training facility in Northeast Ohio. We recently celebrated 10 years of business. We do a form of training called semi-private training, which means that at any point in time, there could be several people who are training here, but they're not training the same way. So if 5 people come in at 9 a.m., that means 5 people are all working on their own individualized programs. And so we kind of keep everybody moving and kind of keep the flow going with that. Business is absolutely fantastic. To be able to say 10 years in that every year we continue to grow is just really a blessing to be able to say. So I do that brick and mortar thing. And as you know, because it's been part of our conversation on your show, is I also do a little bit of what's called online training or distance training, where those who aren't geographically close to here can utilize some of the same things that we use for our clients here. Although obviously you're at a little bit of a disadvantage because there's not that same face-to-face interaction, but we do that as well. And so yeah, that's the long and short of it. Also, a husband and a father to 2 boys, so that keeps me very busy.
Definitely. I kind of keep an eye on you on Facebook and watch what you're doing. Of course, we're part of similar groups. I'm part of your groups, and I watch what you're doing. But you're always working out, man. Always. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's funny though, because I have a good friend who's in the industry who has this Instagram profile that just has thousands and thousands of followers, and she's a fantastic trainer and she's a fantastic person, and so she's been kind of giving me some tips, because most of how I build my business has been through Facebook. And so she's been giving me some tips on ways to kind of access a demographic through Instagram. And it takes a different skill set and a different approach. So I try to acclimate a little bit of that and show people a little bit more about the way that I train. And so it forces me to exercise a little bit more often so that people can see what it is that I'm up to. And if you follow me or have seen me, I don't mind a little bit of self-deprecation. And so the hashtag that you might see is hashtag skinny bastard, because I'm a small framed guy. So yeah, I think sometimes you got to find a little bit of humor in the whole thing.
I'm a small framed girl trapped in a fluffy surrounding outside. That, by the way, I've finally gotten 30 pounds off of.
I love it. I love it.
You know, a lot of men like a little fluff, though, so I'm not going to complain. Not going to complain, Jason. Long as
Don't
my
complain.
man
you got
likes
to
the
rock
fluff.
what you got.
That's right. That's right. That's really what I've been focusing on. You know, we can do so much to make our outsides look better, but I'm sure you would agree with me that you may be attracted to the outside at first, but when you get to know someone and who they really are, that's when they become beautiful.
That's right.
So that's what we've been working. So today we're going to talk about Keto Schmeto. And I wanted to talk to you about this because it is such a craze. And if I just put keto in my title, I know we're going to have a whole bunch of people that'll come and listen. It's just been a big movement across the country. So my daughter and my niece and some of my family have been doing it. You know, I've been on the weight loss train for a long time, going up and down. And I maintained, and for the listeners who may not know, but I lost 24 pounds a year and a half ago, and then I just kind of got stuck and got tired of dieting, and I just started maintenance, and so I kind of went up and down 8 pounds, and I've finally gotten that back off, and about 6 more pounds, so I'm down 30, and I did try keto for 2 weeks. Now, I am if you can't live it, don't do it girl. And I wanted to talk with you, Jason, about some of the things about keto that I found when I did it. But it was not a lifestyle that I could embrace. So from a professional standpoint, being a personal trainer, having your own gym, writing books on the subject, and honestly, I think I've never seen anybody interview more of the profession, the high-ups professions who speak into our lives about fitness than you do on your show called Revolutionary You. Go and check out that podcast. But how do you feel about keto? And I can throw in a little bit about what I thought about it.
Yeah. So, we obviously the launching pad for the conversation is keto, but, I do want to make sure that I can cover as many bases as possible when we talk about this. Historically, you can swap out a lot of different diets. Julie, you have just a couple of more years on this earth than I do. So you've probably seen a few more of these diet trends or diet, popularity crazes that have come through. The one that comes to mind that's been around for a very long time, as has keto, is I think back to Atkins, and then different iterations of that would go into, say, South Beach. And what you find is that I think everything is a useful tool. Where I think things are a little bit different right now is that social media really plays into a lot of this. It used to be you would have magazines and books and TV shows. Mm-hmm. Well, now you have all of that, plus you have social media. And what is everybody doing? They're on their phones looking at social media. And where I think it gets a little bit muddy is it's not just that you see all of this interaction about whatever the diet trend, du jour is. It's that, let's say, for instance, you had never heard of keto and a friend of yours told you about it. And so you go online and you start looking it up, and then you start finding out about these little supplements that they sell and all this stuff. And next thing you know, because you've sort of booted yourself around on a few different websites, when you log back into a website that you frequent, what you're going to see up in the corner is you're going to start seeing advertisements for those supplements. And the algorithms will start to kind of like play into these things where it's like, wow, we can tell that this person who's surfing their phone is into this topic. Let's start to filter more of this into their nice little echo chamber that they're forming.
Right.
And so I think that becomes a little bit misleading, because next thing you know, you're going to see so much, and I'm going to use the term, see so much keto that you're going to think that keto is the only way to go.
Exactly.
And where it also becomes a little bit problematic is, I don't know if you see it. I'm sure you do, because I see it. Everybody succeeds on something to the nth degree when they're on social media. In fact, if you didn't know much about me, if the first thing that you saw when you started to say friend me on Facebook and see what we do, you might see all we do is succeed. that might be your interpretation of what happens with our business. But what you might not know is the things that we struggle with.
Exactly.
So I know this is sort of an odd way to approach it, but I think that, like a lot of diets, it's very much overhyped. And I think that's something that people need to be aware of. I think that for a lot of people, it is not as sustainable as what they might hope, which is something that you ran into. And by the same token, you've still got those little voices in your ear going, well, you didn't do it long enough, or you didn't do it right, or you should have been on it for 6 weeks and not 2 weeks, and you really would have seen the ooh la la magic about it. And again, you take keto out of that, you put paleo in, it's the same thing.
Right.
You take paleo out, you put vegan in, it's the same thing. You take vegan out and you put intermittent fasting in, it's the same thing. So basically what you are coming down to is someone found a way for them to pull their calories in line and make it work. And that's what they're going to talk about. So I do think that keto can be very useful. And if we talk about it from a medical standpoint, I think that it has proven to be very effective for people with epilepsy. And I think it's been proven to be effective for people that maybe are at high risk of head trauma. So if you think about certain athletic professions where people are getting knocked around a bit, there may be, some evidence to support that maybe their bodies do a little bit better when they're, in a state of ketosis, things like that. So when I say that, Julie, I want you to think about that for a second. How many epileptics do you know? And how many people do you know that are engaged in those kind of, athletics? What I know is I know a lot of people that are kind of like you, that work in professionals. Yeah. So not always, maybe the ideal profession or the ideal circumstance for the perfect ketogenic client.
Exactly. I know. I love that you came from the aspect of the Instagram and Facebook algorithms because,
it's
when
a real thing.
There's like
no theory about that.
It's kind of scary. It's like, man, I wish I wouldn't have researched that toenail fungus. You know what I mean? It's just whatever you look up, you're like,
now all I see is funky toes.
I know. It's like, how do they know? Baby bottles, whatever. It's just insane. It's kind of scary. It's actually kind of scary.
It is. And to take a little detour, I'll spin it out of diet for a second. Did you know, and I'll use this company as an example, that if you were to go to Target to register for a bridal registry because you're going to get married, did you know that they have a certain timeline after that wedding takes place before they start to send you things that involve babies?
No.
Because they know that at a certain point in time after you get married, there's a very high likelihood that you're going to get pregnant. So then they start to kind of push that into your email box and your circulars and all that stuff, because they're like, this is a family that's going to be buying baby products. This is, I wish I could make it up, but it's like, that is from a marketing standpoint, it's absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. Genius.
It really is. It really is.
Genius. Why didn't I think of this?
I know, because we're in different fields. That's why.
I know, but who are they? Who are they? I mean, this is a whole new podcast topic we're going to have to talk about. How did they know? How did they know about me? It's like sci-fi freaky. But I can see, I do know when I was on keto, of course, I was going to Instagram and looking up keto. Everybody loses 5,002 pounds. And it's just wild. But I would see so much keto. And one of the things is, Jason, I say I'm 30 and some more. And I have been around a long time. I think I went on my first diet when I was 16. And I struggled with my weight that long. So everything just about that has come down the pipe, I have read. And I'm not going to say I'm an expert like you, but I'm kind of an expert on what they're putting out there to us. And I've also tried so many that when I did keto, I did find a couple of things. Number one, it was amazing that I never got hungry when I did it. Never.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I never got hungry. But as far as a lifestyle, I've had my gallbladder out. And so I had to watch how much fat I was having, and supposedly the key is to have high fat on most of the keto. And so I couldn't do that. And it just was not an enjoyable way of life for me unless I just was going to basically kind of starve, because I couldn't eat the things that I enjoy. And when it got down to it, and I looked at it, now you're the trained professional, but when I looked at it, my opinion was, calories in, calories out. I was cutting way back on carbs, which was, chips and bread and all of those kinds of things, cakes, cookies, donuts, sugar. None of that went into my diet. So that eliminated a ton of calories. And then the fat might have replaced some of them, but it just seemed in my mind to once again, and all diets seem to come to this point with me, where it's how many calories did you take in for a day and how many did you burn, and that's why you lost weight. What do you think of that?
Well, and yeah, so, I'll try to bounce on both sides, just so I don't, leave anybody in the dust with this, because if for the listeners who this is their first introduction to you and I talking about this together, they may not have heard our previous conversation. So I'll be a little bit redundant. It will always come down to calories in, calories out. There are things that may stand in the way, that may slow it down. You and I have talked about menopause and how that can certainly slow the process down.
Yeah.
The really crafty diets, and when I say crafty, I don't mean incorrect. I just mean, I'll use Weight Watchers as an example. Weight Watchers found a very creative way to say, you know what? Don't think about those calories.
Right.
Think about the points. And where it gets a little bit squirrely is, even with their new iteration of their points program, what they want you to focus on is they want you to focus on these leaner proteins and vegetables and all this other stuff, things that we know are healthy and that are good for us.
Right.
But where I struggle is they're saying that these foods are now 0 points. And what I'm telling you right now is that you could theoretically be below your points on the new Weight Watchers program. And from a calorie standpoint, because of your selection of foods, you could actually be very close to surpassing your deficit level. And your deficit is where you lose weight. And if you have that 4 ounces of chicken, which is 0 points for them, that could be the 160 or so calories that you did not need to eat that have now thrown you over your caloric balance. And now you are not losing. So is that a knock on Weight Watchers? It's not, but it means that you have to be really strategic about the way you play that program out. Now, I'll flip this because calorie counting doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
It's honestly, for many people, it can be a very sabotaging activity. It's something where it psychs them out so badly that they're like, I just can't do it. And so I must be doomed to fail, and I must be doomed to be stuck with this weight. And so let's say that same person gets introduced to keto. And for whatever reason, because they saw great results with their neighbor Susie, and Susie's like, oh my gosh, I've never felt better since I've been on keto, which there's a problem with that, in and of itself, is you go, okay, I'm going to do this keto thing. I'm going to do this next to no carb diet, which it basically is next to no carbs, although you do get a little bit. You do it, you start to lose weight, you start to feel better, and you go, well, that must be it. It must have been that keto was the solution all along. No, keto just might have been the solution for you at that moment in time. But just like you said, and we've actually gone on record with this, what is the one food that you're like, I will control this food and it has to be in my daily diet? It was chips and salsa.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, my God, this is why Julie Tussey is not going to live on a ketogenic diet, because do you know how few chips you get in that diet to be able to stay on it? God forbid you have a craving around a given cycle of a month and you're like, please give me the chocolate. Please give me the chocolate and the chips. And so that's where I think it can be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
And like anything else, you're always going to find that keyboard warrior that says, but this is it. Yeah, it's it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's you sub that out for anything else. It's like saying, hey, Julie, because my spouse really works out great for my personality dynamics, maybe we should switch spouses and he'd be great for you too. No, he won't.
No,
it doesn't work that way.
No, and that's such a good point. And it brings such a pressure too, doesn't it, Jason, to feel like, well, everybody's succeeding on keto and so I must do it. But like me, it's not a fit for me. And I'm not slamming it because so many people do find success with it. It's just not for me. But the
Correct.
pressure.
It's and I guess here's another thing to bring up too, is that, when you, and I know this because I know this about you, when you are part of the Weight Watchers program, The pressure is to do it the way that Weight Watchers want you to do it. And the pressure is to have the successful weigh-ins when you go to your support group. And the pressure is to follow it the way that Weight Watchers said. It's not bad. It's just they are there to help you implement that system. And your ketogenic circle of influence, they're there to do the same thing.
Yes.
They're there to say that if you didn't succeed, it's because you didn't work the system the right way.
Right.
It's not that the system is broken. What it will make you think is that you were broken. And again, I'm not trying to make it a ketogenic thing because again, it was
because it can be any diet. Yes.
It could be any single diet. This just happened to be the launch pad for what we're talking about. I do want to come back to something else that you said though, because I think it's important. I know that when you went into the ketogenic diet, what it forced you to do is it forced you to eat more protein.
Yes.
And what we understand, there's exceptions to everything, but what we understand is that protein tends to be a fairly satisfying nutrient to take in. So when you raise it, and this is one of the strategies that I like to employ, when you raise protein, you tend to find that, hey, I'm not quite as hungry as I was before. When we look at things that have a higher carb amount, there's a good chance that your blood sugar drives up and then it plummets and then you're like, wow, I'm hungry again.
Right.
And when you don't have a lot of carbs, you don't really experience quite that same effect. Again, that's somewhat anecdotal, but it's interesting. It's very interesting. But I'll say this too, as a fitness professional and as someone who I literally feed my family by helping people get to their ideal goals. If this was the magic diet, and I'm gonna be fair across the board. I don't care if it's keto. I don't care if it's intermittent fasting. I don't care if it's veganism. I don't care if it's paleo. I don't care if it's Whole30. If this was the answer to all diets, I would want to be all in because I would know that it didn't matter who came through my door. I would give them that cookie cutter approach. Everyone would succeed on it, and I would be the most popular trainer in the state of Ohio.
Oh, you'd be famous, world renowned.
I would. Dr. Oz, come get me because I got the solution. Right. So it's just not that way.
No.
So what I've tried to be very mindful of for myself, and it's not because my my poop doesn't stink. Sorry, I wanted to be clean on your show.
Thank you.
It's not because my poop doesn't stink, because it does. I still put my pants on the same way as anybody else. It's just that it is completely impossible to find a one-size-fits-all diet program that everyone can do, that everyone thrives on. You have some principles, and then you have to make some individualized changes within those principles. And like I said, some diets have found the perfect way to say, you know what, don't worry about the calories. Just follow this plan, and you'll get there. And what they've managed to do is they've managed a way to eliminate the things that will throw you over that barrier.
Exactly. I
And
can.
in the ketogenic state, it's carbs.
Yeah, exactly. And I can speak even for Weight Watchers. They changed the Weight Watchers program every 2 years. Well, there used to be an old one called Points Plus. I did great on that. Then they changed it. I struggled. And so what I've learned is no matter what program, be it keto, be it Weight Watchers, be it whatever it is, I always have to tweak it to be my own. And I have to do
Correct.
things that are not necessarily, quote unquote, allowed or recommended within that for me to live a happy life and to find fitness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. And it's tough, too, because I've got, because of my podcast and all that stuff, I start to, connect with different people on social media. And it's not uncommon for people that are ketogenic advocates to reach out to me because what do they have? They have a supplement to sell. And because I'm basically a gold mine for them, because I have the clients that I've got, they see me and they see dollar signs. So it's not uncommon for somebody that's got these supplements. It's part of a multi-level marketing program to say, hey, listen, what do you know about keto? And I just have to very kindly say, it's not my bag. But if you find that it's working out for you, that's awesome.
Right.
Stick with it.
Right. See, I'm not a keto hater because I know the pain of feeling like you don't measure up, feeling like you can't succeed. I know the pain of going through menopause and not being able to lose weight the way you have your whole life. I know that. And so when you find something that works for you, I think you should do it. I do question the sustainability of keto in a health respect, though, over long term. That kind of concerns me a little bit. But I'm not a doctor, but you might want to speak to that. Do you think that a low carb lifestyle is a healthy lifestyle for a long term?
it's a loaded question, and I'll do the very best I can to answer it. So I'll try to speak to a couple different populations. One of the upsides to the fact that ketogenic not only has been so popular, but it is sustaining the popularity, I think a lot, again, because of social media, is since more people are doing it, and more people are doing it for longer, we're starting to see a few more studies on how it actually affects people. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, I'm not impressed. When I see things like, on one hand, there's this group of studies that says that the ketogenic diet can improve symptoms of depression and anxiety, that sounds kind of cool, because I know a lot of people that would love to get off of their depression and anxiety medications. Right. By the same token, you're also seeing studies that show that it can actually make it worse. And why is that? Well, it's because the brain prefers, and I'm going to be kind when I use that word, the brain prefers the carb source. So, when you think about all the stress that we have in lives, and so I'll put this in your lap. You are a mother, you are a wife, you run businesses, you have a podcast, you do a band. I mean, Julie, you and I might actually be in a contest for who's busier between the two of us. You'll probably win. You'll probably win because you probably have your hand in a few more pots than I do. But I see that is a perfect storm of stress. Yes. And that's even if everything is firing on all cylinders and you're like, but everything is good and God loves me and all this stuff is good. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, it's probably a recipe for some dysfunction somewhere, because it can't all be perfect. You're going to have the days that you're the perfect spouse, but the days that you're a bad mom, or that's your perception of yourself. So now you're going to take this person who's highly stressed, who's probably depressed about the fact that they're not losing weight, and you're going to remove this preferential nutrient from this individual. What if they get depressed? Yeah. Now they're depressed twofold. Number one, because the carbs aren't there. And number two, because they stalled on their weight loss. Right. And here's the other part that really bothers me. One of the things that keto advocates will argue is that you become fat adapted. And that is a fantastic thing to think about. You become fat adapted. Now your body prefers to burn fat. It sounds like a dream situation. Right. Here's where it gets a little bit muddy. When we think of people, generally speaking, who are type 2 diabetics, we think they can no longer handle the carbs. So we need to switch them to this circumstance where the carbs aren't available so that they become, quote unquote, fat adapted. What people don't realize is when you sit on both ends of a given spectrum, either not enough carbs or too many carbs, you can become carb resistant. That's a problem. Or insulin resistant is a better way to say it. Yeah. So yeah, you can actually be in a something of a keto or keto-ish diet and actually be type 2 diabetic. Wow. Because your body no longer it's no longer efficient at metabolizing carbs. Now, is it that way forever? No, just like type 2 diabetes can be reversed. But I just, like anything, you want to look and see what's the counter argument. If you can go and you can hop on Dr. Google, which is not normally recommended, but everybody does it. If you can hop on Dr. Google and say ketogenic diet reviews, read all the things that people say, or as much as you're willing to tolerate, of all the great things it does. And then I want you to read the things that are bad. Right. And then you got to make a decision. Right. I don't think there's anything that you can do with ketogenic that isn't reversible, but that's not medical advice. That's just from what I've seen so far. And it doesn't mean that I've read everything. I've just read some things. But it's I would say if you're a given person who's trying to lose weight and you are sedentary, which means you have little to no activity in your life, and you just need to get a kickstart, maybe ketogenic it's a good place to start. I just don't know that it's necessarily the way that you want to live your life, but it may be that first 10 to 15 pounds that you need to kickstart things. And then you go, you know what? I think I'm ready to have more carbs. And that's not a bad plan. Right. I agree. I totally agree. I do think it's a good, quick start. I think you lose quickly, at first on it, if you really adhere to the low carb aspect of it. And you do feel full and you do think. I actually thought a little clearer, because when you go through menopause, you can get what's called brain fog from your hormones fluctuating. Sometimes you're like, I know that name, and I noticed that was gone. But I kind of, Jason, and this is another stuff, I kind of attributed it to maybe partially because I was cutting sugar out of my diet. And it could be. So that actually raises a fantastic point. Let's say, and again, this is me playing into I like the numbers, but let's say if I were to track your calories, like if I were just to lock Julie Tussey into a metabolic board so that we knew without any argument exactly what your intake was on an average day. And let's say that on an average day that you consume 200 grams of carbs. Could you actually get to a point where you feel better and you feel more coherent? You feel like you're forming your thoughts better. You just feel better on 150.
Mm-hmm.
Or just 100, just by making a minor reduction from 200 to 150. And without doing anything crazy with the other nutrients. So that I can throw the numbers out there, if I took you from 200 grams down to 150 grams, we've just removed 200 calories from your diet.
Wow.
That's a pretty good place to start, I think.
It is.
To at least just kind of get a feel. And the good thing is if you're eating 150 grams of carbs a day, guess how many tortilla chips you get? You probably get a fair amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
Glory.
It's all about the tortilla chips.
We got to fit those in, Jason.
I know it.
You only get one life. Live it to the fullest. If I died today, would I be happy that I did not have those chips and salsa? That's what I have to ask myself.
Right. And so the cool thing is that, you can make a lot of things work with 150 grams of carbs per day. Is it ideal for everyone? It's not. And if you're into high intensity training and things like that, I would say you probably need to be a little bit higher than that. But for a general person, 150-ish grams of carbs a day, it's probably more than you think. It just may not be as much as you're used to. Mm-hmm. But you could still probably get a good feel and go, I think I'm okay there.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how many I get a day. And I can honestly say I'm gluten-free, so I don't probably even get that many carbs a day because I only get them from tortilla chips and fruit.
Right.
So, but yeah, I feel a lot better when I have my carbs, and I feel a lot better, though, when I cut sugar. So I guess you just have to find out what makes you feel good and what works.
You do. You absolutely do. And, because I know that you've done this to a degree of success, it's good to just know your body.
Yes.
And I think that as long as you can kind of play with some of those things, and, I know people that they'll combine things. Maybe they'll combine a Weight Watchers lifestyle with intermittent fasting, mm-hmm. or maybe they'll combine something between, say, keto and low carb, and they're not always the same. Actually, there are distinct differences between the two because you can be low carb and not be in ketosis.
Yeah, Jason, I can actually speak to that because I feel that that's where I have come. I've studied so much and I've learned what works for my body. I kind of know my caloric range, where to keep it. And it's funny that you would say to cut out, 50 grams of carbs would cut out 200 calories because I noticed when I was very meticulously calorie counting that a lot of times it was only like a snack that would keep me in maintenance versus deficit because I was eating so close. You know what I mean? And it's hard to go too low and feel energetic and that kind of thing. So I have found from doing Weight Watchers and from calorie counting that the perfect thing for me is either to do my own version of Weight Watchers and intermittent fasting, or my calorie counting and intermittent fasting. And I actually can get my lifestyle to a place where as long as I'm losing weight, I don't even have to track. I just kind of can intuitively know about how much of a portion. And if I'm losing, I leave it. And if I'm not, I go back to those apps. And for me, intermittent fasting, I love to share about that. And I've shared on the podcast. But all that does is that kind of limits the window of my food intake, which helps me to control my calories. And if I can go and fast, 12 to 16 hours, like I start about 6 o'clock at night and go through and wait in the morning to eat until I'm about to a binge, and then I'll break my fast. I find that I can control the calories and I can actually have, I like a bigger lunch. I like to have a big lunch and then just kind of little stuff for dinner or a snack. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. And I mean, I'm glad you brought it up because, we've definitely talked about IF before on the show, and it's something that, while in practice, I don't see it as helpful for the demographic that comes through my doors, even though many of my clients are drawn to it. They hear about it, and just like with keto, they hear about it from their friends. They want to give it a try. I normally will try to give it some caveats, because everything has caveats that I think people need to be aware of.
Yeah.
But, like anything else, for the people it works for, it works. I've done a few iterations of it myself. The first 2 were not successful. The third time was successful. And so, you play with things, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you give yourself, I hate to, make it all woo, but, you give yourself enough forgiveness and flexibility to go, you know what, if this is not the key that solves all of my problems, it's okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Keto Schmeto ? And we did a lot of research today. I think it was a lot of great information. I'm excited for people to hear the podcast. And, if you can't do keto, it's okay. And if you can't do Weight Watchers, it's okay. There's always a way to find health and fitness for your own body. We're all created so differently. We are. Jason, it's been a privilege to be with you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you again so much for having me. It's always a blast, and I'm sorry it's been such a delay, but it was hopefully we made it worth the wait.
We did. How can the listeners reach out and find you today? And maybe they want to hire you online. Maybe they want to listen to your podcast. How can they find you?
Yeah, so the podcast is called Revolutionary You. As you mentioned, it is very guest-centric. So 99% of the time I've got guests on that I think are just, great sources of wisdom and all pertaining primarily to health and life and all that stuff. If you want to read the stuff that I write, there's my website, which is jasonleenaarts.com. That's LEENAARTS.com. Our services can be found at revfittherapy.com. And I love to connect with people on Facebook. So I'm almost the only Jason Leenaarts on the planet. So you could always send me a friend request, and you could see what sort of mischief we cook up over here at the studio.
I love it. I love your Strong Women series. You guys have to follow Jason and see his hashtags. You crack me up with all that. And some of the stuff that they say, I just want to come to Ohio and go hang out with y'all.
Yeah, you'd have a good time. Swear words abound.
Yes, which it does not offend. Swear words do not offend me. I think it's funny. Some of your clientele that are working out, they're so funny, Jason. You got to enjoy your job so much.
I do. I am constantly entertained. I am rarely offended, and that sounds like we have the right demographic for all of that across the board.
Exactly. Well, give your wife and your sons my love. Thank you so much again for coming on. Everyone listening today, do go find Jason. Reach out to him. Let him know you heard him on the Julie Tussey Show. Don't forget to share this with your friends and family and subscribe. Also, don't forget to go check out the Fabulous Cooking Show with yours truly. And we're on youtube.com/TME TV. You can also catch the podcast right here on iHeartRadio and iTunes. This is Julie Tussey telling you only get one fabulous, freaking amazing, awesome life. Live it to the fullest. To get your copy of the music you hear in today's program, go to cdbaby.com/CD/Julie Tussey 4. Would love to get your feedback on the program. If you have some great ideas for podcasts or anything you want to hear me talk about, please do visit thejulietusseyshow.com, sign up on the mailing list, and send me a message. Here to show you the impossible is possible if you only believe. After a week of hearing hundreds of I can'ts, I'm here today to tell you you can. Find us on social media at facebook.com/The Julie Tussey Show and Instagram, The Julie Tussey Show, home of the original suburban bombshell. If life is my oyster, darling, pass the hot sauce.
Hi, this is Marilyn. I'd love for you to go and subscribe to the Julie Tussey Show Fabulous Cooking on youtube.com/C/TME TV.